Victor, this is November Alpha 1 ISS. How'd you hear? Over.
It's Monday, the 11th of November, or December, actually, 2023. This is ham radio. And what you're hearing now is the International Space Station.
Well, that's a good question. We are doing a lot of different scientific research and technology development up here. Some of it is basic science, which means that we're interested in understanding how physical, chemical, biological processes work, and it's difficult to say how that will benefit us in the future. It's very hard to predict, but we're also doing a lot of applied science in human physiology, for example, where we're trying to understand the immune system, how that's impacted by stress, how our body responds to other factors induced by weightlessness, radiation, and that gives us a better insight into
Well, what you heard there was the International Space Station talking with students in Erie, Pennsylvania, as they fly over.
That's really hard to predict. I think, in a few years we'll return to the moon. We'll have a space station in orbit about the moon. After that, perhaps a base on the surface. And then after that, we'll hopefully continue onwards to Mars and establish bases there. How long before people actually live? I mean, in some sense, we're already living in space now, spending anywhere from 6 months to a year on board the International Space Station. Over. I've got to say, I don't think we are alone. I think there's life out there simply because just in our own galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, there are billions of stars. And everything suggests that many of those stars have planets orbiting them just like our sun has a solar system, which means that there are probably billions and billions of planets in our own Milky Way galaxy. And so it would just seem very strange if the Earth is the only planet out of billions of planets where there's life. I don't know if there is intelligent life, but I think there's a good chance that life forms like microorganisms, bacteria, maybe plants on other planets out there. Over. I don't know. You get used to living on the ISS pretty quickly. Probably the hardest thing in the beginning is weightlessness, simply because it's so unusual from anything we're used to on the Earth, and you can't really train it on the ground. We train spacewalks on the ground, we do it underwater, but even underwater, it's not really the same thing. You have water drag, which slows you down. Up here, it's so move around, yet also challenging in some ways. So weightlessness really don't learn. I'd say there's two things. One thing is being weightless. It's you can only do it up here in space, and it is so much fun. It is the ultimate feeling of freedom. It's the closest that we humans can come to flying like a bird. And it doesn't take very much, or it doesn't take any energy or muscles, just a small little push, and you're flying almost like Superman down the length of the space station. And it is just incredibly fun. The other thing is looking at our beautiful planet from space. There is something incredibly awe-inspiring with sitting in the window and looking down at our beautiful planet. Over. Oh, there are a few things. One, give my kids and my wife a big hug, have a nice shower, have something good to eat. Yeah, there's a few things. Just smell the air, take a deep breath of fresh air. Over. I think one of the big challenges is becoming more independent. I mean, it is still incredibly expensive to launch things into space, and so the cheaper we can do that, the better, which also means being able to produce things in space, maybe 3D printing in the future, using resources that we find on the moon, on asteroids, on Mars. So becoming sustainable in some way is probably the biggest challenge. Well, to be honest, I've always been fascinated with space exploration, so much so that I decided to become an aerospace engineer because I knew that the chance of becoming an astronaut was very small, and so I still wanted to work with space exploration even if I couldn't be an astronaut, and so I became an aerospace engineer, and I'm still very much interested in developing satellites, spacecraft that we send to other planets and out into space to study the solar system and the universe. Over. I think it was the Apollo missions to the moon that really inspired me. When I was a kid and I learned about the Apollo missions to the moon, I thought that was the greatest adventure I could possibly imagine. And even to this day, I think it's the most incredible thing that we humans have ever done. I mean, imagine landing on this unknown world, opening the hatch and stepping out and just getting to explore. Yeah, it's incredible. It's what inspired me then, and it's still what inspires me today. Over.
Okay.
When I applied, there were about 8,500 other applicants, and it's just very challenging because it's so many excellent people who are all dreaming of becoming an astronaut and who all have incredible skills, and so going through that process, meeting the other candidates, and then finally making to the end and being selected, that was a very big challenge. Over. Well, space exploration is important in many ways. One, because it's about knowledge. It's about expanding our horizons, both physically, but also mentally. It's about physically traveling into space, but also just becoming or increasing our knowledge and our understanding of the universe that we're a part of, and that includes the Earth. You know, the Earth is a big part of what we do in space exploration. Understanding the planet, understanding how it changes with time, how we're affecting it, and then also it's about the future. Space exploration is about creating the future that we want. Over. Me personally, that's a good question. A few hours a day, maybe. I felt fairly good as soon as I got into zero-G. I luckily didn't suffer from space adaptation sickness or space motion sickness, so I felt pretty good right after we got into space. Over.
You can't hear the other people because they are in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm in the Harrisburg area, and it's too far.
Well, at the moment, we're doing a lot of really interesting scientific research, including looking at brain cells and how they age. We have a biofabrication facility, which is basically a 3D printer that can print human tissue or mimic human organs. Those are probably my main focus, or my favorite tasks in my day-to-day.
We may have lost the signal because they are traveling in an orbit which takes them up past New England, and we are here in central Pennsylvania, so we probably won't hear the rest of it. But that's what it's like hearing the space station. They make contact with schools and other entities, mostly schools. It's all for educational purposes, and what you heard there was actually an astronaut. They are ham radio operators, a lot of them, and that's... thought it was coming through. It's not. So we've reached the end of what we can hear at this location. And if you want to know more about ham radio, it's much more than that. We talk to people all over the world all the time. And yes, even into outer space. We can talk to them on a special arrangements. So that's it from here. My call sign is WB3BKN, and the name is Terry.